All right. Welcome back to season 2 of the newly rebranded First and Goal podcast featuring Lewis and my beautiful co-host Laraib as we start halfway through a exciting NFL season. Real quick, we have rebranded to the First and Goal podcast, switching from the Lewis and Laraib podcast, as you may have heard from last season. And new viewers, hello, glad you can join us. This season, we had a lot of scheduling conflicts trying to get this thing to work, but the season only really starts after our two favorite teams, Seattle and New Orleans, play. Of course, New Orleans had to get the win.
Oh,
We'll
come
discuss
on,
that
man.
later. But we're really excited about this season. Any thoughts in the beginning, Rob?
Yes, sorry for not starting until, week 7, week 8, but we really had a tough time trying to get together. Both of Lewis and I are third-year students at university right now. So it's a little tough scheduling conflicts, but we're here, everything's together, and we're ready for the rest of the season for you guys.
All right, Laraib. Well, no meaning to mince words. Let's just hop right into it. We will be doing our picks podcast. You will see that on Friday, whenever that is released, where we're gonna go back and show you our picks. We're gonna start from week 6 and go forward, but we'll talk more about that then. So right now, we're gonna do some quick takeaways from some of the best action from this NFL Sunday. A rather, I don't know, not the greatest slates of NFL action. I think the average margin of victory going into the Sunday night game was like 22 points between the winning and losing teams. So a lot of good teams on bye, but it's the NFL, so you're going to get quality content every single week, and we're here to cover that. So let's start in our backyard, Seattle, New Orleans, and go ahead right with the Monday night game, Laura.
Yeah, tough loss for my Seahawks. Our playoff odds have now dropped to plus 450. And it looks like this season might be a wash without Russell Wilson. But some key takeaways, Seattle really trying to pound that run game against that Saints defense, and that front seven would not let up at all. Saw Demario Davis going at it all night. Really questionable play calling by Seattle. And, Geno Smith, we thought he might be the guy after that Rams, him giving a little bit of quality play time against the Rams, and we thought, he might be able to do something. But looking at these past 2 games, he's really struggled. And, this Saints game, the defense really stepped up for the Seahawks, when we honest. A lot of people talk about all the points and the yards they give up. And, you're talking about playing against Alvin Kamara. He had a stellar game, but still only not giving up that many points. But the Seahawks season, I think, is pretty much over at this point, Lewis.
Yeah, it's starting to look like a lot of really gloomy questions going for the Seattle franchise. You start at the top with Pete Carroll on whether or not he's going to continue after the season. A lot of Seahawks fans kind of starting to clamor for his job. I've heard that a lot of times. You bring in the new offensive coordinator, and it still kind of seems like the offensive identity hasn't changed with run, bomb. And without Russ in the lineup, that all these little mistakes, all these lacks of creativity in the offensive play calling are really showing up. And it's still all Seahawk games come out the same. It's all these really, really close games, and the Seahawks somehow always find a way to get the ball at the last drive and say, hey, hey, Russ, save us. And Russell Wilson, Pro Bowl quarterback, all-pro quarterback, usually can, right, in these situations. But we've seen the last 3 games against the Rams, against the Steelers, and then Monday night against the Saints, all 3 games, Geno had the ball at the end, and it was interception, fumble, and then 2 straight sacks in the Saints game that cost the Seattle Seahawks 3 straight games with Geno in the lineup. So as a Seahawks fan, you really need to start to question. At this point, it just can't be the offensive play style. It starts at the top with Pete Carroll. And if you can't get that head coaching decision going, it seems he's kind of been long in the tooth. He's a great coach, don't get me wrong. But it's time for a new culture change in Seattle, I think. And it'll be up to them. If they keep him after the season, no one's going to have any qualms with that, I wouldn't think, because sometimes the grass isn't always greener. But in terms of the Seattle going forward, there's going to be a lot of questions concerning their future head coach and potentially their starting quarterback, Russell Wilson.
Yeah, definitely heard a lot about Russell Wilson in the past offseason, and I think that's going to continue, like you said, into this next offseason. Is he going to get more help on the offensive side or on the offensive line? Is he going to have, change in play calling? is the defense, they played well in the past couple of weeks, but are they going to get some more pieces on, cornerback and defensive line? But, flipping over to your Saints, a sneaky 4-2 team, and they, Jameis Winston coming in at quarterback, a lot of questions about, is Michael Thomas, what's been going on with him? But 4-2, a great start for you guys, and looking like sneaky playoff contenders in the NFC.
Yeah, the Saints offense actually was not that lackluster on Monday night. It was obviously a really bad weather game at Seattle, which, yeah, the defense has not been good, but still at Seattle is always going to be a tough place to play, no matter what the Seattle team is looking like. Jameis made a lot of really great throws, but the lack of depth in a receiving core based off the last few years of salary cap mismanagement, or however you want to call it, this is definitely the position group on the Saints that is the weakest, and it really reared its ugly head in Monday night's game, as there were several drops by guys who really should not be starting on NFL rosters. Kevin White, Kenny Stills, who was just really disappointing drops from those two. There were a lot of miscommunication between Traquan Smith, who was just activated off IR, who they're hoping to get a lot more from. And he had a few impact plays later in the game, but you expect more from him. And then in terms of Michael Thomas's timetable, it's really hard to tell. We thought this would be the game he could potentially come back. It doesn't look like he'll be coming back next week for home against Tampa either. So somewhere around week 10, week 11, you should see Michael Thomas come back if he is not traded before next week when the trade deadline is up, which as a Saints fan, I'm hoping he is not traded. I really like Michael Thomas as a talent, and I think our team needs him. However, got to do what you got to do. But really close game. I wouldn't say it was the most entertaining to watch. 13-10 defensive slugfest in the rain in Seattle. A lot of old school, bad quarterback play. Stuff that we're not used to seeing between the Saints and the Seahawks over the last few years. But speaking of bad quarterback play, we're going to go ahead to a quarterback that you would never associate that with, and that has been Patrick Mahomes. Laraib, what is going on in the loss to Tennessee, in which they only mustered 3 points on the road?
Yeah, it's a really big question about what's been going on with the offense. Andy Reid as head coach, Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback. You got Tyreek Hill at wide receiver, Travis Kelce at tight end. You think about all these playmakers, about all the offensive line they brought in, Orlando Brown, Joe Tooney, and you think about what is going on with them. And I think it's a lot of disgruntlement between Patrick Mahomes and some of the off of the field stuff he's having to deal with. And, I feel like he's just been trying to do a little bit of too much, the no look passes, behind the back stuff, trying to, what he really reminds me of is Russell Wilson of a couple of years ago, when the offensive line is playing bad and you're really trying to go for those big, deep plays down the field, you're holding on to the ball too much. You're trying to squeeze balls in where they shouldn't be thrown into. And, that's how you get turnovers. And then that's how you struggle. And especially with no run game, you think about the Seahawks after they lost Marshawn Lynch, and that run game really hasn't been too well. Chris Carson the past couple of years has been all right, but they're struggling running the ball. And if you're throwing the ball, every single play, the defense is going to adapt to that. Travis Kelce, he's been getting jammed up on the, at the line of scrimmage. He's really been, vocal about a lot of interference plays that he hasn't been getting called for. Tyreek Hill, we know he's a speedster. He's a deep threat, but he's really been getting locked up too. And I think, it's going to be a big problem for the Chiefs going down the road.
I think another problem that is not really talked about much is the lack of development from that second wide receiver position, whether it be Demarcus Robinson, Mecole Hardman, Byron Pringle. You're not getting a lot there in that position. So it's becoming if you can stop Tyreek Hill from beating you over the top, and he has trouble sometimes getting space in intermediate routes, if you can stop him from breaking you up top and put two men on both sides of Travis Kelce and do not let him get any wiggle room inside on those Patrick Mahomes scrambles, then Mahomes, he can't really look for another option on the field. And with Clyde Edwards out, who is a pretty good receiving back, he doesn't have a lot of passing threats right now. And the offensive line, I don't think they've been terrible. I think a lot of the pressures are self-inflicted on Patrick Mahomes. But he's having to play Superman a lot. He's pressing a lot. He's heard all the chatter about how bad his defense is. And I think this Kansas City defense, what we've seen over the few years, they start out really, shoddy, but they kind of turn a corner around November, December. And I think he's just hearing all this noise, not thinking of inside the building of what they have. And they have good defensive players. Chris Jones returning this week. They're getting Travarius, I forget his last name, but one of their better corners. He's coming back off IR as well. So the defensive help is coming. So he needs to stop pressing so much. But a big problem is those wide receiver twos, Mecole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson, really have not been what the Chiefs have thought they would be. And I completely agree with you as well. The lack of running game as well, really making this Chiefs offense predictable. And in a matchup against a banged up Titans secondary to put up only 3 points is saying a lot right now about this Kansas City situation.
Yeah, for sure. And you flip it over to the Tennessee side of the ball, starting off the season, we must have thought, this team is not going to do very well. But now look where they are now, leading their division. Division isn't that good, but, they're still top three. I think they're currently third in standings for the AFC right now. And Ryan Tannehill, he hasn't been playing as well. Julio has been banged up. AJ Brown's been banged up. But King Henry is putting the team on his back. I know he definitely is for your fantasy team. And he's carrying this Titans offense. And, he might be able to take him to the promised land. As far as he can, run this team or carry this team on his back, they'll go as far as he can carry them.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say enough. And I want to flip it over to the Titans defense. Obviously, like we talked about, really banged up in the secondary, a lot of holes back there. And they were really disappointing loss early in the season. They lost to the Jets and just got destroyed at home by the Cardinals, who we thought, at the time was a really bad loss. But now it's not looking too bad as the Cardinals sit undefeated right now. Yeah, Titans, I mean, they're really starting to find that identity again. Getting AJ Brown and Julio Jones on the field together, healthy, is helping them a lot. And Jeffrey Simmons, Bud Dupree, who came off an injury a few weeks ago, has really started to flash a lot. Big offseason signing. A lot of people called him overrated from the Steelers. I didn't think he'd be too impressive, but he flashed a lot in that Kansas City game. So a lot of good things. Their defense really starting to come around. Kevin Byard had been there for a while. Jeffrey Simmons off the edge had a huge stop against Josh Allen in that Monday night game last week. They're starting to figure it out. And if both these two sides of the ball can figure it out for the Titans, I think they can win this division rather easily. But we'll see what happens next week against the Colts, which will decide a lot within that division. But let's move it forward to another divisional battle that happened this week. And that was the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Baltimore. And if I were to tell you the score of this game before the season was going to be 41-17, you would say, yeah, the Ravens take care of business. What's new? But it was the Bengals going into Cincinnati and the new dynamic duo from my LSU Tigers, Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase, lighting up this Ravens secondary, which they lose Marcus Peters, but you still have Marlon Humphrey back there. And some good safeties. It was really shocking to see the progression that Jamar Chase has shown this season with his explosiveness and his connection through college that he's shown with Joe Burrow and the relationship that those two have that make them one of the most unstoppable duos, even though they're both so young in their NFL careers.
Yeah, for sure. And this Baltimore team is kind of really surprising because they beat the Chargers last week or a few weeks ago by a huge margin. And they come out and they play against a Cincinnati team, which they've really thrashed for the past couple of years, and they just get completely blown off the field. They really don't have too many big injuries. All the offensive weapons are out there for them, and still they can muster up, too many points against this Cincinnati defense, which has been really, this is a team who struggled against the Bears a few weeks ago, and now they're beating Baltimore on the road. So, Cincinnati leading the division right now. Like you're saying, Jamar Chase, he might be having the greatest offensive rookie season of all time. So him and Joe Burrow are going to be crazy. Are going to have a crazy connection in Cincinnati for a long time. And, for Lamar Jackson, the Bengals, we've seen them have a couple bad losses over the past few years, and they've come back from it. So, I'm not too worried about them. But, not winning your division is going to be a really big setback for them, going into the playoffs.
And there was no doubt the Bengals offense would be good this year, with all those receivers, good tight end, coming out of he's been there for a while, but having a breakout season in CJ Uzama. They have two good running backs. But the big story of how this team has really flipped is that defense. Zach Taylor emphasized this offseason. They spent a lot of money. Trey Hendrickson, Larry Ogunjobi, they brought in a lot of, linebacker help, safety help, and they really shored up that defense, really good against the run. They had five sacks against Lamar, the most times he's ever been sacked in a game, which is really impressive for this Bengals defense that's it's really starting to turn a corner. And whenever it comes into late December in Cincinnati and you're playing against a really good pass rush and run stopping defense, it's going to be tough for opponents to score against Cincinnati. So they have a really good thing going with them right now. A lot of props to Zach Taylor, who's kind of looked down upon, not a really big name, had an unsuccessful season last year, but proving with a healthy Joe Burrow and a good amount of weapons, he can make it happen for the Bengals.
Yeah, passing up on Penei Sewell doesn't look like too bad of an idea right now for the Bengals. But moving on to the Sunday night game, Indianapolis Colts beat the San Francisco 49ers on the road. Lewis, what do you have to say about that rainy game?
I mean, not a good look for the 49ers. A team that had a lot of hype going into this season. Obviously, injuries have been the story of the last 1.5 seasons for the 49ers. George Kittle can't seem to get healthy. A lot of defensive pieces. Their secondary is really, really bad. I mean, the amount of times Carson Wentz was able just to throw a lob up downfield, and he knew it was either going to be caught or there was going to be a pass interference. And you just kept saying, like, it was like a 49ers fan's nightmare watching Carson Wentz throw the ball and knowing for a fact that was, yards were going to be gained either via penalty or via catch. And I really, really bad performance. You expect a lot more from what you think is a physical running team and a pounding defensive line. You expect them at home in a really rainy game against Carson Wentz, who hasn't been that bad this season, only 2 interceptions, 11 touchdowns. But still, like, you expect to pressure him, get in his face, and force him into a bad spot. And they really couldn't do that late in the game. I mean, Carson Wentz found his rhythm, was getting out of the pocket and making a lot of plays with his legs, out, looking for receivers downfield. Michael Pittman and Mo Alley Cox were huge in this game for Carson Wentz. And it just got to a point where you're sitting right now at 2-4, and you really start to look at Kyle Shanahan as this offensive mastermind with Jimmy Garoppolo as quarterback. And you can't really figure out that situation, even though it seems like he has been the best quarterback for Kyle Shanahan this entire time, because with anyone else, he's just not that great. And now Kyle Shanahan's sitting at a record of 31-39 as a head coach all time. Not that impressive for the new genius coming into the NFL, with a lot of questions, considering you traded 2 future first-round picks for Trey Lance, all that capital. And if you knew going into the draft that he's a project, he probably wouldn't play, you're going to keep Jimmy Garoppolo, well, is it a rebuild? Because what are we doing? You're not going to have your pick. You're not going to have next 2 years picks for the first round. And that's huge for a team that honestly has drafted pretty poorly in the first round. I mean, Solomon Thomas, bust, a lot of the other draft picks that they just whiffed on. So I've been really confused. I mean, they made the Super Bowl 2 years ago, all the credit to them. But ever since then, it's just been a really weird downhill slope that 49ers fans should be more cautioned about.
Yeah, and let's talk about the Colts for a little bit. Props to head coach Frank Reich. A lot of people thought going into this season, the Colts didn't make the right move for trading for Carson Wentz. They saw the defense last season. This year, they're kind of banged up at wide receiver, or they don't have, the household name wide receivers, but they were able to go out against that 49ers defense, like you said, who's been beat up in the secondary. And I have to agree with you, Kyle Shanahan. A lot of questions about him going into this offseason. What is the rest of the season going to look like? How's Trey Lance going to develop? Was it really worth it trading up for him when they could have gotten somebody like Mac Jones, who's really been the main, rookie quarterback this season? And for the Colts, I think, they have a really big game coming up this week against the Titans. If they want to win their division, it's going to be, taken off the Titans. And we saw, Elijah Mitchell for the 49ers, he was the one bright spot for their offense. He's able to run all over the Colts. And if Derrick Henry can, if Derrick Henry, he has a big game against the Colts, I think the Colts might struggle.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a good one. A lot of credit to the Colts defense. We knew they were good. Darius Leonard having a really underrated, underappreciated season as he continues to flourish in that role. and had a really big game on Sunday night, just causing havoc in the middle of the field in that chaotic game. So major props to that defense. And yeah, Frank Reich, another coach that maybe should be getting a little bit more spotlight than a Kyle Shanahan, who just Frank Reich always finds his way into the playoff mix. Mike Vrabel always finds his way into a playoff mix. Say what you will about the division. These two head coaches just never get the love because they're these two guys playing in Midwest teams no one really cares too much about. But these guys deserve a lot more credit for what they've done to flip those franchises around. Where a guy like Kyle Shanahan, I mean, I need to see more. I need to see more. But let's go ahead and move on to our last game that we want to take away from. This was Chicago at Tampa Bay. I mean, absolute thrashing in Tampa. Not much to say about the actual game. But Tom Brady throwing 600 touchdowns in an NFL career. First quarterback to ever hit that mark. Just outstanding. I mean, what he's doing in his 44th, he's 44 years old. In his 21st NFL season, he looks like one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league at this advanced age. And he looks like he is in the prime of his career, if you were to tell me about it. So, I mean, I've absolutely outstanding his play and this Bucs offense with all these weapons, Brady, Gronk, AB, Evans, Godwin, Leonard Fournette, the sneaky offseason or in-season acquisition from last year, who they picked up, is now starting to play like a number 4 overall pick. And he is really making a difference in that running game and in the receiving game for Tom Brady. And he just has a embarrassment of riches at every single position group on that offense. And now their defense, who was just absolutely, Justin Fields was seeing ghosts. You know, he didn't say it, he didn't admit it, but he looked terrified every single time he dropped back. There was JPP, there was Vita Vea, there was Shaquille Barrett just in his face immediately. Joe Tryon, the rookie, in his face immediately. And he just had nowhere to go. Really impressive showing from the Bucs. And they really look like they're the class of the NFL right now.
Yeah, and then going over to the Bears side, Matt Nagy, his seat is on. He's sitting on lava right now. I'm telling you.
There is no seat.
On the over-under on him being 5-4 this season must be really, really low. I mean, you put $100 on that, you're maybe making half a cent on that bet. But yeah, I know Justin Fields, you have to feel for him because how bad the play calling has been, how bad the offensive line has been, how bad the wide receiver play has been. The defense has been the one bright spot for this team. But this past week, they just got obliterated by like you said, Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time. I have my own gripes with him after what he did to my Seahawks in the Super Bowl, but yeah, you can have nothing but respect for him. And especially after he's been to Tampa Bay, just a change in personality. You thought it's somebody, Tom, in New England, somebody, real, over the top, or not over the top, really, he doesn't talk to the media that much. He's hated by everyone. He comes to Tampa Bay, he's throwing the Lombardi trophy between boats. He's posting these videos on Twitter with rap music in the background.
He's enjoying life. Come on now.
Yeah, he's living life. And, Tampa Bay, I think they did one of the greatest acquisitions in all of sports history. A couple years ago, they had Jameis Winston. They had everything that they needed: a defense, wide receivers, offensive line, running back. And then you know what they did? They went out and instead of, tanking, like the 49ers and then getting a quarterback, or like the Bears, getting a quarterback, they went out and they got somebody really good,
a proven quarterback.
Yeah,
not a highly touted rookie. They went out on a risk and got a proven quarterback.
Not somebody that they had to develop, somebody who could come in and win now. Because you have a defense, it's solid for a couple seasons. 4 seasons, it's solid defense, and players, I don't want to stay here anymore. I want more money. I'm not getting enough playing time, and so defenses, they break down after a couple of years. But they brought in Tom, they win the Super Bowl, they sign everybody again, look like they might win the Super Bowl again this year. And, the 49ers, they really messed up with that. The Seahawks, you just look at the Seahawks, how great the Legion of Boom was. They had Russell Wilson, and you saw that defense slowly tear apart year after year. And now look at them now, they're struggling on the defensive side. They have Russell Wilson as a quarterback, but they really, don't look like Super Bowl contenders like Tampa Bay has been.
So if you're Mickey Loomis, GM of the Saints, you're picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, Russ, You said that we were part of your 4 teams you wanted to join. We have the pieces. Just come on over to the Big Easy, and we'll help you out. But no, it's a really good point. A lot of teams need to be a lot more aggressive when they have the talent, because quarterback is a really hard position to find. But if you know there's a proven commodity in the league, don't trade up for a rookie. Don't waste potential draft capital on an unknown. Use it on a known commodity who can come in and help your team, a la the Rams and the Buccaneers. Trade for Matthew Stafford, trade for Tom Brady, and look where they are, top of the NFC. But yeah, I mean, overall, that team is the best in the NFC. And I think, speaking of best teams, we are going to pivot now. Real quick, last week, a lot of really good teams, a lot of interesting teams were not playing on bye. But this upcoming week will be a lot more exciting, a lot more interesting matchups to delve into. And we're going to go into our Thursday night prediction at the end of the episode. So stay tuned for that. But real quick, Laraib and I are going to unveil our top 5 teams in order, descending from 5 to 1, and kind of a little bit reasoning behind them as it stands right now at the end of week 7 of the NFL. So, Laraib, who is the 5th team, in your opinion, 5th best team in the NFL?
My 5th best team is my Los Angeles Chargers, led by my boy Justin Herbert. I mean, what can you say about that guy? Offensive, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I did call it offensive rookie or offensive player of the year last year. And he's really stepped up his game this year. Austin Eckler having another great season. Keenan Allen really hasn't been doing that well, but Mike Williams, the touchdown monster, he battled injury the past couple of years, but now he's back. He's going ham. Him and Keenan Allen, one of the best 1-2 punches at wide receiver in the league. The offense looks really potent. I know they did get trounced by the Ravens before the bye week, but you think about some of the teams the past couple of years who've really been great but have gotten trounced. Think about Tampa Bay last year against New Orleans on that Sunday night, got absolutely blown out, went on to win Super Bowl. So hopefully this is good for my LA Chargers.
Yeah, Chargers did not make my top 5. I want to comment real quick. I just don't have faith in their run defense. They've been getting gashed every single week. So, I mean, if you don't have that late in the season when you're traveling to a Kansas City, to a Cincinnati, to all these, northern teams where it's really dependent on being able to run and stop the run, that lack of ability to do so is going to hurt them. But that's not right now. So I don't hate the Chargers, but my top 5 team, a team that beat the Chargers, is the Dallas Cowboys, who coming off the bye week, Dak Prescott looking amazing. I love their offensive strategy. 2-headed monster in the backfield with Pollard and Zeke, and that pressure taken off Zeke, allowing him to be a kind of a take a play off here and there, get fresh legs every single play, making him look like prime Zeke. And he's having one of the best seasons of his career, coming off a few down seasons in his estimation, I'm sure. And then CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup coming back off IR after this week. And then Cedric Wilson has also been playing very well. Dalton Schultz, Blake Jarwin, they just have receiving options, threats all over the field. And this defense, you want to talk about playmakers, Trayvon Diggs with 7 interceptions in 6 games. Every single game, he has impacted that team. They're getting a lot more turnovers on defense, a lot more sacks. Micah Parsons coming in as a rookie and playing with his hair on fire, coming after the quarterback. I'm just really impressed with how this team has flipped its defense. Dak Prescott's back in there controlling the offense, and they look like one of the most complete teams in all of the NFL.
Yeah, while their team did not make my top 5, their offense is definitely top 5. Dak Prescott looking like he completely deserved all the money that he got during the offseason. And yeah, so my number 4 team is going to be the Buffalo Bills. They lost week 1 against Josh Allen. They lost week before last week they lost to the Steelers, and then they lost to the Tennessee Titans on a questionable 4th and 1. Go for it. End of the game.
No, go for it. You have to go for it.
That's a gutsy play call, and like you think that's the right decision, but I think kick the field goal, go into overtime, live for another day. But yeah, you talk about complete teams. This is another one of those complete teams on the offensive side. You have Emmanuel Sanders, Stephon Diggs, and Josh Allen, 3-headed monster. Run game lackluster, but they can get it done with Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. And then on the defensive side of the ball, one of the best duo safeties in the league, and Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, along with Tre'Davious White and our guy Matt Milano at the linebacker position. And they're looking like a really good team. Definitely going to win their division. Always watch out for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I'll get to them. But my number 4 team is the Los Angeles Rams. Really complete team. The only real concern I have is sort of the secondary outside of Jalen Ramsey is a bit spotty, and their linebacking depth is not the greatest. But overall, that defense is elite in terms of just having star power with Ramsey and Donald affecting the game in so many ways. And then you make the offseason acquisition to acquire Matthew Stafford, and he's come in and played like an absolute MVP. Cooper Kupp playing like a all-pro receiver, which I think he will be at the end of the season. And that connection those two have has been electric. One of the best offense, defense, just complete teams in the NFC, and they're really starting to distance themselves amongst the NFC contenders, but they are not the top team in the NFC.
Yeah, for my number 3 team, I had to go with the Rams. Talk about complete on offense. They have every single position on offense is lethal. Defense, whatever the secondary can't do, Aaron Donald in the front 7 makes up for that, and so does Jalen Ramsey. But going on to my number 2 team, it has to be the Arizona Cardinals. Right now, sitting at 7-0 undefeated. Offense looks stellar. Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, they're always going to be good. Chase Edmonds having a little bit of breakout season. James Conner reviving his career. On the defensive side of the ball, you have Chandler Jones, you bring in J.J. Watt. You're playing, awesome, complimentary football. You have Zach Ertz, and, you're in the NFC West, what's supposed to be one of the hardest divisions to play in the NFL, and you're sitting at 7-0 right now, so you have to give them their props.
Yeah, real quick, my 3rd team was the Buffalo Bills. For all the reasons Laraib stated, one of the more complete teams in the AFC. The AFC really doesn't have a great defense, in my opinion, that's also complemented by a good offense. But this is the team that's the closest to it. They have, the duo of safeties, impressive defensive line. Gregory Rousseau really coming on as an impressive rookie for the Bills. And they've been playing very well. And then, of course, Josh Allen, enough said with him leading that team. And they're definitely going to start pulling off. They have a really easy schedule going forward for the next 4 games. And they're going to look like one of the most dominant teams after this stretch. And then I agree with you for my number 2 team as well, the Cardinals, undefeated. There are some questions about the legitimacy of this defense and I guess the durability of Kyler Murray. That little lack of certainty prevents me from putting them above my number 1 team, just because even though they have an undefeated record, even though they've beaten some really impressive teams, I just can't put them right at that top spot yet, which I think me and you both agree belongs to the aforementioned Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady at the helm, playing like he's in his 20s right now, top of the MVP race, in my opinion, leading the league in touchdown passes, really great receiving core, and their defense absolutely showed up last Sunday against the Bears, in which they just terrorized Justin Fields. And if these 2 units can come together and go on a roll like they did last season around this time, then I expect really big things from this team.
Yeah, that's for sure. Their secondary, we had a little bit of questions about that earlier in the season, bringing Richard Sherman. They have a couple injuries at cornerback. But what the secondary can't do, that entire front 7 makes up for it. Levante David, Shaq Barrett, Vita Vea, JPP. You can list anyone on that front 7. They will wreck your run game, and they will wreck your quarterback. And I cannot wait for them to wreck your Saints next week. Tom Brady, I think he also leads the league in passing yards as well. So, he's playing stellar right now. Got his 600 touchdown ball back from that one guy in the stands.
I'm keeping that ball. I'm keeping it if I'm him. I'm sorry.
He's living life right now.
$500K.
He's living life right now, and the Bucs look like the best team in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are our top 5 teams, respectfully. Leave your opinions in the comments below. Let Laraib know that the Chargers were just an absolutely wild pick. And real quick before we wrap up this episode, we're going to go ahead and look ahead to this Thursday night's game between the Arizona Cardinals and the Green Bay Packers. This game will be played at Arizona. And Laraib, you want to talk about it real quick while I look up the line, unless you have it.
Yeah, I can talk about the game. So yeah, Green Bay will be traveling to Arizona. Quick few things: Devontae Adams and Alan Lazard are both out for this game. So Aaron Rodgers missing his top 2 targets. But you had some questions about this Cardinals defense, and we're going to see if Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, can expose them this Thursday night. They still have Aaron Jones in the backfield. Let's see what their running game can do. And then Arizona, this is going to be a big game for them. Big stage, primetime game. Everyone's watching you. You're 7-0. Can you beat Aaron Rodgers at home and really solidify 8-0? And you're beating one of the best teams in the NFL in primetime.
Yeah, big concerns. So this line is 6.5 for the Arizona Cardinals at home. Really big line, but if you take into account the loss of Devontae Adams and Alan Lazard, that's really going to affect this Green Bay offense, as Chandler Jones is coming back off the COVID precautions, and he will play in this game and cause havoc in the backfield for Aaron Rodgers. This is going to be a tough game. We usually don't do our upsets of the week on a Thursday night game, but 6.5 points is very intriguing. And I just like Aaron Rodgers. I think he always finds a way. The connection between him and Randall Cobb has really come on in the past few weeks. And I think
it's not like they've ever played together before,
Hey, it takes some time to get the magic rekindled. And I think they're going to rekindle that in a big upset win this Thursday night, as I have the Green Bay Packers securing the upset 31-28 at Arizona. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers improve to 7-1 and lead the NFC.
And I'm going to flip onto the other side. We talked about this Arizona Cardinals team a little bit just a couple minutes ago. And Cliff Kingsbury, we've seen this Cardinals team last year. They were 4-2 and they completely go off the rails. Kyler Murray gets hurt and, the season just goes down, miss the playoffs, all that. But I think Cliff Kingsbury, he's really turned around this season. 7-0 is a great start for them. Playing against a Packers team, which is missing Devontae Adams, one of the, maybe the best receiver in the league. I think Aaron Rodgers, he does have a rapport with Cobb, and we've seen him play with MVS before, but they've struggled sometimes with these two, with MVS last season. And I'm going to take the Cardinals in this one. It's going to be a tight game. I'm going to go a little bit less scoring than you. I'm going to say 24-21 Cardinals.
All right. Well, those are our Thursday night recaps. And our predictions episode will be out on Friday, so look out for this. You'll be seeing this on Wednesday morning whenever we decide for it to come out, usually around noon. But thank you so much for listening. This is the First and Goal podcast. Glad to be back this season. Took some time, but we're here and we're ready to finish off this season with a bang. One of the best NFL seasons in my memory. So this is Lewis signing off. Laraib, any final comments?
Yeah, just a little bit what you said about one of the greatest seasons in the NFL of all time, maybe. A lot of great teams, fighting for playoff positions, fighting to win their divisions. I think this is going to be a season for the ages, and we look forward to sharing it with you guys.
All right, well, peace out and enjoy your weekend.
All right, yep. See you guys.